Our relationship has been, pretty respectful. Besides the shit he said about Bronny at Summer League.
LeBron James has a long memory, and it was an open secret that every slight against Bronny was meticulously filed away. So when the coach unexpectedly sent Bronny to the bench in the middle of a crucial game, the Kings' famous composure shattered. Shouts echoed. The bench went rigid. Assistant coaches rushed in, desperate to contain the fallout, but it was too late. Security personnel were already moving toward the team huddle. What was the flashpoint that ignited the chaos at Crypto Arena? This was the eruption, the moment an unbreakable rule was violated. There are cardinal sins in this world. You don't provoke a hibernating bear. You don't test a feeding lion. And you absolutely under no circumstances attack a man's child, most of all when that man is LeBron Raymond James, a titan who stands as one of the most influential figures in the annals of sports history. Because when that line is crossed, when sports analysis bleeds into a personal attack on a man's own bloodline, a fundamental switch is flipped. The aftermath serves as undeniable proof that even the most poised, the most disciplined, the most perfectly image-conscious superstar on earth has a threshold for disrespect. And on that night, LeBron James had found his. But to truly grasp the magnitude of that confrontation, one must understand the years of pressure that led to the explosion. This wasn't a sudden storm, it was a slow-building hurricane of criticism, of doubt, of outright contempt, aimed directly at Bronny James, the 21-year-old Laker. A young man trapped in the impossible shadow of royalty, fighting to forge his own path on the unforgiving professional court. The raw numbers tell a stark story. In the current 2025-2026 season, Bronny's court time is a mere 7.2 minutes per game over 30 appearances with just a single start. His stat line reads 2.2 points, 0.5 rebounds, and 1.2 assists. To the casual observer scanning a box score, those figures screamed one thing: he doesn't belong here. And that narrative became an undeniable truth. The sentiment wasn't confined to anonymous keyboard warriors. It was amplified by some of the most powerful, most respected voices across the entire sports media landscape, echoing a pattern from the season prior. In fact, the famously outspoken Fox Sports personality Colin Cowherd articulated the brutal consensus with chilling clarity. He's a 6'2" guard who can't run the point, a type of player he'd never seen survive in the modern NBA. But Cowherd didn't stop there, relentlessly hammering the point with cold, hard data that was nearly impossible to refute. The kid was 1 for 6 from the field in the NBA and a staggering 0 for 7 from three-point range. He simply wasn't an NBA-caliber player. Those statistics became a heavy burden following him everywhere he went. Cowherd delivered the final crushing blow with a declaration that encapsulated the whispers of half the basketball world, and he was far from alone in his assessment. Former #1 pick Kwame Brown, a man intimately familiar with the sting of being labeled a failure, took to his YouTube platform and unleashed a torrent of criticism after a preseason game where Bronny failed to score, shooting 0 for 4. Bronny's performance the previous night, he declared, was nothing short of horrendous, leaving him completely baffled. And from there, Kwame aimed higher, questioning the basketball genius of LeBron himself by examining his son's struggles. He argued that LeBron's success was rooted in raw athleticism, a fact seemingly proven by his son's on-court failings. He branded Bronny as charm and tissue soft, claiming any other player posting such dismal numbers would have been released from the team without a second thought. He then openly challenged the silence of other media figures, demanding to know what they would say now. Kwame wasn't just taking shots at the media, he was attacking the entire ecosystem of protection built around the young player. But his tirade was far from over. He pointed out the absurdity of ESPN creating highlight reels for a single basket made by the boy. Then Kwame drew his line in the sand, insisting his critique was not personal. This wasn't about animosity, he argued, but about exposing a system of unfair special treatment. He called it pure insanity, a nonsensical double standard that demanded he support one player simply because of his father's legacy. But the story takes another turn, pulling in a figure far more immediate than retired players or media personalities, a current NBA, a superstar. During the 2024 Summer League Boston Celtics' All-Star, Jaylen Brown was caught on a hot mic, appearing to say he didn't view Bronny as a true professional. The footage went viral, amassing over 200,000 views. While Brown later attempted damage control on social media, praising Bronny's skills and future, the initial comment had already been etched in stone. LeBron James did not forget. Jump ahead to February 23rd. 2026 in a post-game interview after a Lakers defeat to the Celtics, where a reporter asked LeBron about his relationship with Brown. The response was measured, stating their relationship had remained largely respectful, with one glaring exception: what Brown had said about Bronny at Summer League. A tense, heavy silence hung in the air, the kind of pause that signals a man is carefully weighing every single word. Despite the reporters prodding to see if they had moved past it, LeBron would only repeat that. Aside from that one incident, things had been fine. When pressed again if they had resolved the issue, his reply was a chillingly simple, "We'll be all right." That statement revealed everything. Don't let the smile fool you, and don't mistake an MVP endorsement for forgiveness, because LeBron James keeps a running tally of every slight, every criticism from figures like Cowherd, Wayne Brown, and Jaylen Brown. Add to that the constant drumbeat from Skip Bayless questioning if Bronny had the heart for the league, and Rashad McCants blasting podcasts for coddling the kid instead of demanding excellence. It was a powder keg of resentment slowly building pressure toward an inevitable explosion. And caught in the blast radius when it all went off was none other than Stephen A. Smith, in a showdown that was absolutely electric. Now you have to understand, this was not your typical NBA drama. This wasn't some heated exchange in a post-game presser, nor was it a war of words fought on social media. This was LeBron James in person, striding up to the most recognizable voice in sports media, surrounded by cameras and thousands of fans at a Lakers-Knicks game, and unloading on him. Stephen A. Smith had been a relentless critic, openly challenging the wisdom of thrusting Bronny into the league's intense glare. He had used his national platform to beg LeBron to ease up on the pressure. Then came the phrase that set the collision course in motion. A statement he couched in deference, saying he was trying to be as respectful as he possibly could be toward LeBron. That very plea is what ultimately landed Stephen A. squarely in LeBron's sights, a moment where he implored LeBron James as one father to another. "Stop this. Stop it." Those two words, "stop this," ricocheted through the sports world like a gunshot. And Stephen A. didn't leave it there. He dissected his argument with cold, hard logic, stating that everyone knew Bronny James was in the league because his father paved the way. He praised what they were seeing from him in the G League, arguing that's where the young man belonged for now. But to Stephen A.'s credit, he always maintained he was cheering for Bronny's success, convinced the kid could one day become a very solid professional player. But that's not how LeBron James processes criticism. He doesn't sift through the noise to find the compliments hidden within your argument. He just hears the part where you say, his son isn't ready. And for him, that's the only message that matters. So as the Lakers and Knicks prepared for battle at the Crypto Arena, with Stephen A. sitting courtside next to Hollywood power broker Ari Emanuel, and the legendary Larry David LeBron made his move, walking straight toward him, no go-between, no phone call. No pre-arranged sit-down, just a raw, face-to-face confrontation where he told Stephen A. Smith in language unfit for broadcast to keep his son's name out of his damn mouth. By the next morning, footage of the exchange was everywhere, forcing Stephen A. to confront the incident head-on during his show First Take. He recounted how LeBron James had approached him completely out of the blue, he was quick to add. He explained that the purpose was to challenge him to make sure he chose his words carefully when discussing his son. Now, Stephen A. could have gone nuclear. Missy. He had the platform to ignite an all-out media war, but he chose a different path, one that surprised almost everyone. He put himself in LeBron's shoes, realizing that the man who confronted him wasn't an athlete. It was a father, a dad protecting his own. That insight is critical because it's the very heart of why this moment resonated so deeply. This was never about basketball analytics. It had nothing to do with shooting percentages, court time, or assignments to the G League. This was purely about a father who had silently watched his son be torn apart by public opinion for months, and finally hit his breaking point. Stephen A. conceded that LeBron's feelings were completely justified, admitting he understood the raw emotion driving the king. And he explained he couldn't sit there and harbor any anger or feel personally offended by LeBron James's reaction in that specific context. And it was a massive. But Stephen A. also made it known that he deeply wished LeBron had chosen a different venue for their discussion. He noted that LeBron's agent Rich Paul had his contact info, his business partner Maverick Carter had his number, and LeBron himself could have reached out at any time. A private discussion was always on the table, but that was a path he chose not to take. He chose instead to confront him publicly while he was on the floor doing his job. Smith also drew a firm line regarding his own commentary. He was adamant that his critiques were never a personal attack on Bronny, but rather on the impossible situation LeBron had created for his own son. He brought up LeBron's own declaration from February of 2024, when LeBron claimed Bronny was ready for the Lakers roster and already better than half the players in the league. Stephen A. contended that this kind of hype coming from a figure of LeBron's magnitude only intensified the scrutiny on the young man. He explained that if they had spoken privately, he would have assured LeBron James that he would never speak ill of his son as a person. And then came the bombshell that recontextualized the entire affair, where he revealed he was talking about you, meaning you, LeBron James. That was the core of the entire conflict. Stephen A. claimed his fire was always directed at the king. It was about the choices LeBron made, the suffocating pressure he generated by his public desire to play with his son, and the unbearable spotlight he cast upon a player still finding his way. But LeBron's ears heard something entirely different. He heard a direct assault on his child, and in that instant, the four-time champion vanished and the protective father emerged. The consequences were instant. Stephen A. acknowledged their relationship was shattered, stating bluntly, "We don't like each other." He even told Pat McAfee he would have thrown a punch if LeBron had laid a hand on him. And yet amid all that smoke and fire, Smith kept returning to a single unifying idea: to have LeBron look at him with that intensity for him as a father of two daughters himself. As a dad, Stephen A. fundamentally got it. He understood that primal need to protect your own. He just profoundly disagreed with how it was delivered. The truth is, the entire situation was a minefield for one simple reason: both men had a valid point. LeBron was defending his son like any father would, while Stephen A. was correct that a private discussion would have been a wiser move for everyone involved. But nuance doesn't exist in the world of professional basketball. The community drew battle lines, and they were drawn deep. The aftermath was immense, revealing a much larger conflict. Now, if you believed the heated exchange with Stephen A. was the climax of the drama, you fundamentally misunderstand the relentless nature of the NBA media machine. Because as LeBron was occupied shielding his son from the commentators, an entirely different inferno was igniting. This new blaze proved that the criticism aimed at Bronny wasn't just loud, it was pervasive, and it was coming from the most unlikely of sources. Remember the All-Star voting. In January of 2026, the release of the All-Star ballot results sent a collective shockwave through the sport. Bronny James, a rookie averaging 1.5 points per game, while shooting a mere 31.8% from the field, had somehow garnered 2 votes from active NBA players to be a starter for the Western Conference. As if that weren't enough, he had also collected roughly 62,600 fan votes, not for some ceremonial nod, but as a legitimate starter in the All-Star game. Former 4-time All-Star DeMarcus Cousins was absolutely scathing. He speculated live on air that the only 2 players who voted for Bronny were LeBron and Bronny himself, dismissing the act as pure foolishness and linking it to his long-held belief that the Lakers organization had given up on winning the moment they drafted him. Former NBA forward Charlie Villanueva was even more direct. The dude averaged 4 or 5 points at USC, coming off a serious heart condition, and he got drafted. Then came the punchline that sent the panel into hysterics and lit up the entire internet. Averaged 5 points a game, right? I don't say a word. He got a 4-year guarantee. Got a 4-year guarantee. Villanueva was voicing the thoughts many were whispering, but were too afraid to say publicly, and his co-hosts could barely contain their laughter. The whole segment was soaked in a kind of stunned disbelief. The reaction you have when witnessing something so utterly preposterous that laughter is the only possible response. Over on the Run It Back podcast, Chandler Parsons was calling for a complete overhaul of the voting process itself. Make the ballots public so you can't look like a complete moron when you vote for a moron. Parsons insisted that if a player was going to cast a vote for someone with virtually no meaningful NBA experience, they should at least have the conviction to attach their name to it. He had a point. The secrecy of the ballot is precisely what enables this type of mockery to occur without any accountability. Lou Williams, a player who had praised the historic father-son moment when LeBron and Bronny first played together, found himself just shaking his head at the All-Star fiasco. He stated unequivocally that players should be barred from voting, calling the entire system a farce where players just vote for their own teammates and nothing more. And all of this was unfolding while Bronny was diligently doing exactly what his organization asked of him, moving back and forth between the main roster and the G League, trying to hone his craft far from the relentless glare of the spotlight. In the G League, he demonstrated potential, posting a career-best 17.7 rebounds and 3 assists on February 27, 2026. He had another impressive performance with 15 points, 4 rebounds, and 8 assists during his G League debut. His three-point accuracy even climbed to 41.4% in his brief NBA appearances, a significant improvement over the 28.1% he shot in his rookie season. But facts are irrelevant when a story has already been written. And the prevailing story, according to the vast majority of the sports media, was brutally simple. Bronny James is only in the NBA because of his father's name. Even Skip Bayless, a man who built a career on attacking LeBron James and had seemingly found a new target in his son, was forced to concede he might have been mistaken after witnessing some of those G League performances. But the poison from his earlier remarks claiming Bronny simply might not have what it takes had already seeped into the discourse. This is precisely what makes this whole saga so compelling. Because once you peel back the layers of hot takes, viral clips, and sideline confrontations, you are faced with a question that nobody in the basketball world appears ready to confront. Honestly, what would you do if you were LeBron James? If you had the power to play in the league with your own son, something no one in the sports history has ever accomplished at this level, would you not seize that opportunity? If your son endured a terrifying cardiac event before his college career had even begun, and if he battled his way back from it, and if he was then drafted and secured a spot on a team, would you not shield him from the Wolves? Because that is exactly what LeBron sees when he tunes into the coverage. He isn't seeing objective analysis. He sees predators circling his child. You can label that as being overprotective. You can dismiss it as delusional. You can call it anything you like. But as Stephen A. Smith himself conceded after their courtside encounter, I don't hold it against him for wanting to confront me because it wasn't a superstar athlete who confronted me. He certainly played like one again last night, and then came the final words that put everything into sharp focus. But that wasn't a basketball player who approached me last night. That's a daddy. That was a daddy. 4 words that conveyed more than any statistical analysis ever could. Because when it's all said and done, LeBron James isn't just fighting to protect his legacy as an all-time great. He's fighting a much more fundamental battle. He's fighting for his son's right to fail to improve, to grow, and to become whoever he is destined to be without the entire world shouting that he doesn't belong. Whether Bronny James carves out a career as a role player, spends his years in the G League, or chooses to leave the game behind altogether, a father's vow forged in the fire of a courtside showdown and sharpened by every tense interview. Through every subtle jab and explosive exchange, LeBron James sent a message the world could not ignore. Cross his son, and you answer to the king himself. Allies like Nick Wright condemned the relentless criticism, calling it a cruel assault on a young man recovering from cardiac arrest, a late second-round pick, not a franchise savior. From the shadows, the whispers of anonymous scouts and executives painted a grim picture that Bronny was set up for a fall, crushed by the weight of impossible expectations. At the center of the storm, Bronny himself, in a rare March 2025 interview, insisted he just tunes out the noise and focuses on his work. But this story has no final chapter. Not while the name James is stitched across a Lakers jersey, and certainly not while a legend is also a father. The drama is relentlessly fueled by a sports media machine with microphones, cameras, and enough hot takes to fill a 24-hour cycle. This battle will rage on. And if anyone believes that fiery confrontation was the last time LeBron James will defend his blood, they haven't been watching The Throne. Support the story. Like this video and click the card on your screen to see what happens next.